Notice that spearing and stabbing motion works wonderfully. I turn it over, I pull that joint from the oyster itself, and I go right down. Works wonderfully for chickens. I'll now demonstrate the same grip segmenting an orange. I keep the orange in the cup of my hand, making sure my fingertips are truly out of the way. Then what I do is I bring my blade on one side of the rib until I reach the center. Then what I do is I take it on the other side of the segment, and I repeat the same procedure until the rib pops right out. Now remember, this technique can be utilized for lemons, limes, tangerines, grapefruits, and oranges because all citrus is constructed identically. The second grip is also widely used and is used mostly when cutting to the right. It's utilized with all 4 fingers on the handle and the thumb on top of the blade itself for precision and control. Now, it works wonderfully for medium-sized items such as this sole. I'm able to skin the sole with the same knife because it's a very small fillet. The third and final grip for the boning knife is when I have my hand back on the handle because I'm going to spin the knife. I come through with the tip of the blade and then I aim to the right. I bring my forefinger underneath to grab that fat and then I slide my knife all the way to the end of the beef. Now I lift that and then I continue to lift as I use a sawing motion to remove all that outer fat. And as I exit, I come up and making sure I come up with my elbow as well. So therefore, my forearm and my elbow are out of the way of the blade of the knife. Our next knife is the fillet knife. The fillet knife is identical to the boning knife except it has a longer blade. This makes it ideal for filleting medium-sized fish and meats. Now the grip is identical to the boning knife, and watch how effective it is on this rockfish. I come underneath the back of the head with the blade of the knife using an angle to maximize yield. Again, I come down to cut through the belly and then grab that with my thumb so that I make sure I don't cut through that. I then come to the top and then I spin my knife downward and make sure I fillet the entire snapper fillet. Skinning it becomes very easy as well. Remember, I bring that to the back of my board, I go in with a slight incision, I hold that down, and then I wiggle, as I wiggle my knife, in an opposite direction motion. And there we have skinning and filleting our snapper. This fillet knife works great for cutting meats, especially fillets of beef, lamb, or pork. Look how easily it goes through the meat, and I love that long blade, which gives me a tremendous amount of power and force. Our next knife is a paring knife, which is an all-around small utility knife that you really can't do without. It's wonderful for trimming smaller proteins, segmenting fruits, and scoring tomatoes. The grip is almost identical to the boning knife grip, where you have your index finger on top, the thumb on the handle and the bolster parallel to the shaft of the blade, and the 3 fingers underneath on the handle. You have complete control. Examine how effective it is on these tomatoes. Coring, and also scoring for blanching and peeling. It also works great for segmenting small citrus such as limes. Remember, same principle on all citrus. One side of the rib, the other side of the rib, I go to the center and my knife already automatically stops. I go to the other side and this segment comes right out. The second grip works great for peeling potatoes and sweet potatoes and yams. What you do is you square off your potato. Now, I hold my potato in my thumb and my index finger and my middle finger, and then I come around having my 3 fingers on the handle and then my index finger around the blade, and I use my thumb on the other side of the product, and I just come right underneath the skin using a semicircular motion. I turn the product counterclockwise, therefore going directly under the skin, and let me tell you, I have very little waste, and this sure saves me some time. Now you can utilize these techniques with yams, sweet potatoes, and potatoes. Now this exact technique and grip works for an apple. So I begin my incision and I spin the apple. Notice my thumb is constantly moving across the surface of the apple, and I'm just slicing my way through the apple. Now you could use a peeler, of course, but I bet you I'll beat you with this technique. And if you're good, you do it in one shot, just like that. The third grip works great for trimming citrus, such as oranges, lemons, and limes, and tropical fruit like papayas and mangoes. First, I square off the actual orange. Now, before I do the technique, let me show you the grip. I have my thumb actually on top of the blade itself with all 4 fingers underneath the handle. Now I'm able to effectively put a lot of pressure on the orange and get great results. I use a semicircular motion around the orange. I try to maximize my flesh by going right underneath the skin and not wasting too much by carving too deep into the flesh itself. And now I'm almost ready to segment my orange. Again, paring knife is indispensable in the home kitchen use. Our next knife is a serrated knife. This knife works great for cutting things that are tough on the outside and soft on the inside. Breads especially, and tough skins vegetables such as eggplant, bell peppers, and tomatoes work great with a serrated knife. Now the grip is easy. My 4 fingers are placed directly underneath the handle. My thumb is parallel to the shaft on a slight downward angle, making sure I keep at least 1/4 of an inch away from the bottom of the knife blade and the bottom of my thumb. Now, watch how easy it is to slice through this bread. Remember, holding down firmly with my other hand and retreating, never feeding the blade. The knife also works great on eggplant, again, which have very tough outside and soft inside. Remember, retreat. Remember, I'm slapping, almost slapping the tip of that knife off my finger before I cut it. Henkel's also makes a fantastic 5-inch serrated utility knife, which works great for smaller breads like muffins, dinner rolls, and bagels. Also on tough-skinned fruits and vegetables like Japanese eggplant, apples, and pears. Let me demonstrate on this Roma tomato. And notice I use the tip. It's a stab and drag motion again, but it's against my knuckle. So I have complete control and complete precision as well. The 5-inch utility knife works great for cutting smaller breads such as rolls, muffins, and bagels. Watch how easily it goes right through the bread. Using its sawing motion and its serrated teeth, it has the best of both worlds in a small utility knife. Here I demo it with a fresh Macintosh apple, which again, we know it has very, very tough skin. I'm able to go right through the apple with effortless energy. And that is key because normally a flat-bladed knife might get stuck and cause you some problems. The next knife is the cleaver. Generally, there's 2 different types of cleavers. A heavy blade for bone chopping and a thin one for mincing, slicing, and cutting fruits and vegetables on the bias. This is the thin one which works wonderfully for those techniques. Now, the grip is identical to the chef's knife. I have my 3 fingers underneath. I have my thumb basically parallel to the blade itself on a slight downward angle. And then, of course, I have my index finger bent at the top knuckle with the 2 knuckles straight at the bottom. The thin cleaver works great for stir fries when cutting on the bias. Using the tip of the blade, you'll see the complete control I have. And again, using the same techniques, always retreating with my fingers, using those knuckles, and having complete control of the blade. Here we have our second type of cleaver, which is the dense, heavy cleaver used for chopping bones. Now, bones are the foundation for all soups, stocks, and stews. And it's vital that you use them to get the most flavor out of your bases. Now, most of the time when you get bones, you get them whole. Therefore,